All right, just a quick check. Everybody online, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay. Those joining us in the room, welcome to our March Advisor Breakfast. We've got one more of these after this, but we thank you for joining us today. Please enjoy the food. Please make sure you sign in. Grab some of the materials from our presenters today that are on the table. Grab one of our mugs for our advisor, showing our appreciation for you. But at this point, I'm going to turn things over to our presenters for today.
Thank you, thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. I'll probably try to elevate my voice a little bit because I know we're spread out, and then we have the Zoom folks. So hello, Zoom people. My name is Carrie Monica, Associate Director here in the Counseling Department. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I've been here for about 4 years. I'm an ASU alumni, I'm a U of A alumni, I think of my job as all things that happen outside of our center doors. So while we have teams of people that actually provide the treatment and assessment and case management for students, Trevor and I are really kind of outside of our center doors doing things like training and education like this. We also spend a lot of time with students, staff, and faculty talking about things that they're interested and passionate about related to mental health and how can we help them support that, build that, cultivate that in their student communities. And so I'll let my colleague introduce herself.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Trevor Coleman, and I am the program coordinator senior in outreach for the counseling department. And as Carrie just stated, we are here to provide faculty training on stress, depression, work with graduate peer groups and student peer groups to help maintain and make an impact in mental
health. So I'm really going to focus on just talking about sort of the details of our services and really how to explaining how to access services to students when you're sitting in front of them, when they're asking questions about it, kind of knowing where to go to and exploring where our resources are, and just feeling more comfortable kind of talking about what's available at ASU. And then we'll have time for questions. And then, like Chris said, there's some print materials over there. If there's more that you'd like, because we put the QR codes on things, which everyone likes, I'm happy to find a way to deliver more of those for you. So actually, can we just get kind of I know some people in this room, but can we just do like quick name and like where you're from? And if you're a student, that'd be helpful too. So can I start with you?
Charles Boyle, International Students Club.
Excellent.
Destiny Allen, Changemaker.
Alicia Marinette, Teachers of the Future and Champions of.
Andreas Bob with Trio.
Sorry, I know we're all eating mid-bite.
Patty Santiago with Trio as well.
Ever used Katie there.
Awesome.
Friendly Willis also programming.
What's at that table?
We're with this York.
Okay, I still want to know who you are.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm Laura.
Laura, hi.
Nice to meet you.
Alex, okay, I didn't get your name. Maria, hi.
I'm Haley with the ICC and I advise.
Yes, hi, Haley. I thought I saw Rosita somewhere, but you got
me.
okay. Hi, Rosita. I'm gonna introduce yourself for you. Sorry to I'm Megan. ICC, okay. Are you with ICC?
No,
Oh.
I'm Angie. I'm with Student Services. I'm with Barrett and I oversee all of our Barrett organizations.
Awesome, awesome. Good crowd in here. Nice diversity. Let's see here. Oh, I can't. I'm having troubles here, Chris.
Click on the screen. It should.
Oh, there we go. Okay, here we go. So I think we're all aware that we're in a mental health crisis in the world. And this has been exacerbated from COVID. And so I'm always going to talk about encouraging you all to talk openly about mental health. I know that's not always easy for people. People aren't always comfortable about that. And so I don't expect you to get into treatment mode. But I encourage you to kind of think about how do you have these supportive, safe conversations with students about how they're doing, right? And something that Trevor and I are working on that will eventually kind of be available to all of you is having some material for staff and faculty around trauma-informed relationships with students and how do you have kind of these healing conversations that don't put you in a counseling mode, but at least give you the skills and confidence to be able to navigate tough conversations Because often what we hear is, I don't feel comfortable when a student tells me they're depressed, anxious, or suicidal, right? Usually we don't know what to say, so we don't say anything at all. Or maybe we say something that's not so helpful, and we kind of freeze, right? And that's understandable. You're not mental health professionals. And so again, we want to give you all the skills to feel more comfortable with sort of what to say, how to be helpful, and then how to point them into the right direction if they need it. And so normalizing the conversation of like validating for students that like, there's pain points about college, right? There's things that are really difficult for college and for students, and to validate what they're experiencing. And so you may get a lot of students who are like, I'm really stressed out. I'm having a really hard time. I miss my home. I'm not meeting anybody. I don't like my roommate, right? And sort of like, well, it's gonna get better. But instead, like, yeah, that must be really difficult. And maybe you have your own experience of how that's happened for you. And so kind of normalizing what they're experiencing, do a lot of validation. I just met with a student who played baseball at a community college, you know, had an injury, long distance relationship, depression, anxiety, and I just did a lot of validating, right? Instead of like, you know, you're injured, you're thinking of like a professional career in baseball, like how devastating. I didn't go into that, right? I went more of a direction of like, wow, but you made it to ASU. You're thinking about changing paths in your career. And so kind of something like a growth mindset conversation with students, because we can easily go down a path with someone when they're kind of in doom and gloom, right? Anybody have people in their lives who are like negative and you're like, ooh, it's draining, right? And so kind of thinking about how you shift conversations with students. Also reminding students that like some level of stress keeps you motivated, right? It keeps you curious, it keeps you kind of in the zone. It's when it sort of turns like at the top of that bell curve, when we look at bell curves of things, when it's in that red zone, where you're having a hard time functioning, right? If you're failing classes, if you're avoiding friends, if you're not coming out of your room for whatever reasons, like that's when the stress has become overwhelming. And so yes, stress is normal. Stress isn't going to go away. And so how can we like tap into helping students kind of revisit like what works for you when you're stressed out, right? Yesterday I just did a presentation for about 20 ROTC cadets, Air Force cadets. And I talked about the fulcrum balance of stress and protective factors. Do we all know what protective factors are? They're like the assets in our life that we possess to get through hard things. And so protective factors for me is I was raised by a single feminist liberal woman, which made me like a really strong person, right? That's my protective factor. My protective factor is that I'm a mother, which gives me a variety of skills and abilities in a lot of different ways. My protective factor is I'm educated. And so thinking about like, how do we like draw out protective factors from students? Because when stress gets hard, right, here's like our protective factors. And here's our stress. And so how do we get students to be like tapped back into like, hey, where are your protective factors and how do you balance yourself out, right? Because stress is always going to be here. And so how do we keep this balance? Anxious thought for me, an anxious person, like anxiety is part of the college experience. Depression, anxiety, relationships, and stress are like the top 4 indicators we see in data when we're looking at mental health of students' collegiate spaces. And so like, it's okay to be anxious, right? It's okay to be a little nervous about things. But like, how do you move through and like work through these things? But again, like, how do you recognize when anxiety is tiered into maybe something dangerous for you? And so again, not coming out of your dorm room, not wanting to socialize, isolating, drugs and alcohol, all those things. Kind of, I think this all kind of conceptualizes. The last one is just like, you know, it's something that just it's important for us to talk about and talking about out loud. Anything to add, Trevor? No? Okay. Any comments or reactions to what I've just said? Agreements, disagreements? Thumbs up. Great. Food helps, Chris. Thank you. Food really helps me. I think people here and caffeine, right? So you may all know this, and so I'm just again going to go over what we offer. But there is a counseling office on all 4 campuses, and so here are the different locations. And our offices are open 8 to 5, and so students can walk into our office to schedule an appointment. They can walk in and ask questions and just say like, hey, what's counseling about? What does it cost? How do I sign up? Like, who am I going to talk to? We have front office people that are there to kind of triage students where they need to go. And so location on all 4 campuses. So we're very conscientious when we're hiring staff to make sure they're representative of the university. ISSC, you probably relate to this, right? You're always trying to hire a representative of the populations of students you're working with. And so we're fortunate enough to really span the spectrum of disciplines on our team. So we have social workers, counselors, marriage and family folks, substance use, public health, educators. And so, you know, we're graduate students at one point. And so graduate students often have this kind of notion of like, counseling is just for undergraduate students, right? But that's not the case. And so we try to convey like, actually, graduate students need it probably even more, because there's just a different level and a different game for graduate students in terms of stress. And so we all have different visible and invisible intersectional identities. And again, this speaks to like, how are we representative of the university and what students are looking for when they're meeting with a therapist. And so we may not meet all unique needs of students, but we try to. And so students are welcome to call when they're scheduling an appointment and say, hey, you know, do you have a female therapist who has experience with LGBTQ student identities? And we do our best to try to pair with someone like that in our team. We all have licensing boards that we are governed by in our disciplines that keep us ethical and keep us in continuing our education about different areas of mental health that are important. And so these are all kind of ways to govern us as a group of people and ensuring that we're really doing sound work as professionals. And then here are just some of the languages that are spoken by our staff in our department. And so again, students can say, hey, you know, I'm really I feel more comfortable speaking to someone about mental health in this language. We often get Mandarin students, Chinese students who speak Mandarin, who are like, you know, I just feel like I'd be more comfortable speaking to someone who actually speaks Mandarin. Great, we actually have 3 people who speak Mandarin, which is tremendous. So that's just a snapshot of languages. I'm going to talk about Open Call and Chat in a second. But Open Call and Chat is a massive network of providers that we have who speak hundreds of different languages. So even beyond these, if a student has a language that's kind of not listed here or in the 5 kind of core languages that Open Call and Chat offers, again, they would just name that when they call. I'd like to speak with someone who speaks X language. Do you have a provider? So again, we're an international university, right? And it's important that we're speaking to the languages of students. Any questions about our staff and how our composition, who we are? Okay. So Trevor and our roles, like I said, are all things outside of our center doors. And so training and education, we have a library of presentations that we offer on all different topics. Like I said, you know, I just did one for stress with ROTC students. Trevor is doing stress for a couple different students. It's not common that we get all stress requests right now in the semester, but that doesn't mean we don't have other topics that we can offer. We also welcome collaboration on presentations. You are all other experts in your departments, and we rely on you to kind of help us with developing content that's like relevant for student audiences. And so if there's ever a topic you want to kind of collaborate on, like let us know. That's our job. And as I mentioned, we spend a lot of time with students talking about what they're interested in. I was just talking to Alicia here. She's an advisor for a group that I met with a couple summers ago, who, you know, I'm trying to elevate what they're doing in terms of their role and being helpful peers in their environment. And so, you know, I personally really enjoy that. I really enjoy spending time with students who are like, hey, I want to do this thing. I'm like, can you help me? And like, of course I can. That's my job, right? So I just want to share a really major success of an event that just happened that was all student led. Some of you probably heard of it. I don't know if any of you were there. Anybody was at the walk a couple Saturdays ago? Okay. And so the Out of the Darkness Walk is a national affiliated event around suicide prevention and awareness through the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention. There's a local chapter here in Arizona. And prior to my time here at ASU, I guess the walk was happening for years. And it was actually kind of, I guess it was community led and happened off of Apache. Haley, you're like nodding your head. Do you remember this? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then it kind of stopped for a few years and then students picked it up with our leadership 2 years ago. So in 2021, the foundation approached us and said like, do you all want to do this again? And we're like, sure, but like, we want this to be of students, right? Not of staff. And so here are just some quotes from the walk. One person, there are actually a couple families who came across the country to come to this walk. And someone said, my son died of suicide after he graduated from ASU. And so it feels good to be here and think about what students are doing. Someone else said, this is my favorite walk. I've attended several. And then a student said, it's nice to know that people who care are doing things like this. And so we had over 200 people attend the walk, which is tremendous. And again, this wasn't just community people. These are students, these are staff. We had a fraternity there. We had Black student organizations there, both cohorts of students that we normally aren't engaged with in mental health, right? And they raised almost, that's actually an old number, but they've raised so far almost $20,000 for suicide prevention research at the local level. And so this is an example of like how do you think about broad support of what students are doing around mental health? And like, you all are welcome to be a part of that in some capacity. And so for the next year's walk, like, you don't have to walk, you don't have to donate. Like, do you pass out flyers for students? Do you have a conversation with your staff about like, hey, I just need you to go like pass out 5 flyers, go post a couple posters. Do you go to the Panda Express fundraiser lunch on March 10th and contribute that way? And so there's lots of different ways to contribute to the walk. And it's not just like coming and doing it, but that would be fantastic too. And so I'm really proud of this. And so I just felt it was important to share with you. So this is a great slide to take a picture of. We also have it on our print materials. This is like everything we offer in one slide. And so we try to kind of make it that way to make it easy for students. And so we recognize that there's not like one pathway for students to get help here at ASU. We know that students show up and experience what they're experiencing in so many different ways. And we also know that, students aren't always comfortable with this counseling, right? And someone's sitting across, a lot of people are, not just students. But I think people have this notion that like counseling is like going to this office, you talk to the front person, you check in, you give them your insurance card, you wait for the therapist, they come get you. And then if you're new to counseling, you have this really awkward experience, right? Of telling your problems to a stranger. And so, yes, that might be some element of it if someone's first coming to us. But again, there's like different pathways. And so that's where I think open call and chat is really, really amazing in that there's multiple pathways, even in open call and chat for students to get help. And so there's a texting feature, telephone, and then also future telehealth scheduled appointments. And so this is the network of providers that we partnered with through an organization called LifeWorks. And this is where students can request individuals who speak any other different language that they're interested in. What we're finding is with open call and chat is the texting feature, obviously, is the most highest used feature by students. Not surprised, great. We know that's what's needed and what they're interested in. We also find the highest usage is on Wednesdays after 4 p.m. and on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 9 and 12, right? And so I'm like fascinated by that. I'm like, okay, I don't know, are they just in bed on Monday and partying on Friday? Well, Wednesday is a hard day, right? And so thinking about in your own spaces, like, what are we doing to support students on Wednesdays? And it seems like high stress. Or what is it about Monday that gets them to Tuesday where there's high stress? Or what is it about Wednesday to Thursday where there's high stress, right? And so those are kind of the bits of data that we like to share and talk about, because that drives like where we know students are showing up and perhaps where the needs are. There's an app through my open call and chat called My SSP. And so students can download the app. You can even actually download the app. And so once they download the app, they just set up their account with an ASU Right information, and then they can access the chat, the call, and the telehealth feature. But it also has a tremendous amount of resources. So you could even go on your desktop, create an account, and go look at all the resources that are available and kind of send those to students if you want. But there's articles, there's tip sheets on all different topics related to collegiate health. There's even like an exercise app or program in My SSP, which we've heard that students really like as well. So, and that's 24/7 from anywhere in the world. So for our international folks, if students back in China or studying abroad, they can still access open call and chat. If they're Arizona local and they're going to Florida for spring break, and there's a time zone difference, they can still access it even at 2 o'clock in the morning. We have in-person and telehealth appointments at each of our 4 locations. And so those can be scheduled through the health portal. Students can also do this by calling us. And then this is really, really important. You know, I hear a lot of, I can't get an appointment for a couple months. And so we've created same-day appointments, which is appointments that are just designated on our staff's calendars for same-day needs of students. And this is really to mitigate the demand, right? There's 30 of us and almost 80,000 students. And so we're really trying to find ways to mitigate the high demand for counseling. And so same day appointments are one of them. Sure, if a student's going into the portal, they may see appointments scheduled in the future and they may be a month out. And if that month doesn't meet their needs, then why don't you go ahead and give us a call? So same day appointments, which is really important to know, can only be scheduled by calling or walking in. You can't go into the portal. The thing about same day appointments is it could be for students in crisis, but again, we just need for a student who just can't wait, right? They just really need to talk to someone. And if for some reason we're super busy and we don't have any of those appointments, then we point them to open call and chat, and usually we get an answer from someone right away. We have our own dedicated crisis line, EMPACT, which is also 24/7. It's staffed by behavioral health professionals who are qualified to ask the right questions and assess the situation. So this is for students, staff, and faculty who either have concerns about a student. Students have concerns about their peer, their roommate, their friend. You can call to just consult. You don't have to be in crisis. You can just be after 5 o'clock. You can't remember open call and chat's number, and you're just like, hey, EMPACT, what do I do? And so their job is to really make a decision with you or whoever's on the phone, the student, and make sure that you all feel comfortable about what's the next step, right? And sometimes the next step is, hey, we need to get the police out. Hey, they're going to come out and further assess you. Hey, we need to get to the hospital. Or, you know what, I'd like you to schedule an appointment with counseling in the morning. So again, we're making sure that students they have a pathway after they're connected to EMPACT about where they're going to go. We also have a whole new team of people. There's 2 case managers. And we have a care coordinator who all they do is follow up with students who don't show up to appointments, right? And they don't follow up for assessments. And so they're calling and saying, hi, I'm Carrie with ASU Counseling. You had an appointment scheduled today. Just want to check in, right? There's lots of reasons why people don't show to counseling appointments. I mean, across the board, like not just ASU. And so we're trying to kind of reduce the no-show rate, but also make sure we're managing risk by saying like, are you okay? Like, is everything okay? Why did you miss the appointment? And so again, team of people who are like working on the outreach of really safety and managing risk. And then here's our main phone number, which gets you to kind of all of this, except for open call the chat. And this is available for you Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. And it could just be like, hey, Carrie, you know, I had a concerning conversation or observation of a student that like really worried me. And like, did I say the right thing? Like, what should I do? Or, you know, a parent called me asking this, like, we're there to really kind of talk you through tough situations and things. It's super common. I just did a family orientation presentation last night for like 100 parents. And I got a very, very serious email afterwards from a parent about their student. It was like, whoa, heavy, heavy stuff, right? And so, boop, I pinged that to our care coordinator, and she's going to call the student and talk to them. And so those are like little ways where we're kind of woven into the community to like pick ways that like students need help and maybe they want to ask for help. So again, this can be it. This can be just calling our number. Any questions about our services? Yes.
Well, I appreciate your thoroughness and just, you know, making sure people don't fall through the crack. What's like the volume on the EMPACT, you know,
I would say our volume is here. Is our in-person and telehealth appointments. Our volume is right here, which is what we're trying to do, right? It's actually a good thing if we have less of this.
Right.
I don't know the exact numbers, but if I want to say that these are more, and that's actually a good place to be, is in that way. So I don't know that specifically. I don't like the specific data on that. It is highly used though. And so there's sort of our line of our Hotline at night. We have we work with Dean of Students, Housing, and Counseling on a team of picking up the phone and answering if EMPACT determines that they do need to weave in one of us. So we have people who are up in the middle of the night answering the phone and saying, how do I need to help, right? And so we're triaging help with students through the course of even the evening, and then getting them to where they need to go. Good question. Yep.
From folks joining us over Zoom. So the question is, how do we get to the counseling library to see recorded content?
The counseling library, I mean like the trainings? Probably. Yeah, so if you go, so right here, this link on this slide, there's a little link to an outreach request form. And on that form has the list of trainings that you can have access to or request. But that's not an exhaustive list. So they can always say like, hey, I didn't see a training on there. Do you have this? But usually one of those trainings meets the needs. Yep. Any other questions?
So we have somebody asking. Misty, you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question real quick?
Sure. Sorry, I was just trying to pop it in the chat quick too. So if we're not able to call, so like if it's something that we're in a space where we're actually in a meeting and something comes up, or which I've had happen, or if it's a concern that's less immediate, is it okay to just submit the form through the Dean of Students office? And I put that link in there. It's just that kind of general, like, hey, like I have a concern, check in. If I understand right, it goes to the Dean of Students office. And if it's like mental health related, that it also goes to your team in the counseling center. Is that correct?
Yeah, you're talking about having a concern with a student.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
Yeah, that we've
Are you
got that
faculty?
form. So I actually am the president of the Council of Religious Advisors.
Gotcha.
So,
Hi.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for all the work that you do. So because we spend a lot of time engaging with students.
Yep.
I know that we've been using this form a lot this year, but I'm just want to make sure that it's actually tracking and we're getting things in the right place.
Yep, so that outreach form is not for student concerns, that is for training needs only. Or like, can you come to one of our events? Can you table at something? And so if if you're asking about that form, that's not the form, Misty. The Dean of Students
Nope.
does. Is that what you're talking about?
Nope, that's not. It's actually called, it's the student care form.
Okay, so that must be
It's a student care form where we actually report that we have a concern about a student.
Yep, so I think if that's the form I'm thinking it is, that form has a team of people comprised of Dean of Students, counseling, yes. So I guess, yes, I'm not part of that team, so I can't speak exactly to what they do, but I think that's what you're mentioning is like, we're concerned about this student. The Dean of Students determines like, hey, we need to rally some people around this to talk about how we're going to support them. So yes, I mean, that's where you need to submit your concern. But you can still, like, that's not the only pathway. You could still call us, you could still call EMPACT. And so again, that's kind of we have a consultative role. And what you just described is like, hey, where should I go with this? And then we'll tell you where to go with it if you're unclear. If you think maybe even the Dean of Student form isn't the right place. So yes, the Dean of Students form from the example you used, but maybe not every example is as clear. And so you can call the Dean of Students or us to ask, like, where's the best place to point them? If we have someone who says like, I mean, last night, that example was really, really high risk, high touch point, like kind of really alarming. And that would be appropriate for us to be like, yes, we'll reach out to that student. But if a parent says like, hey, you know, my son's a little lonely. He's really shy, which is hard, right? And I'm worried about him. You know, we're going to give them some tools about how to guide them as a parent and how to have conversations with them. We're going to give them the resources. And then, you know, kind of letting them know, like, call us back if it doesn't get better, right? Or if your student is still kind of struggling when these things aren't helping, give us a call back. So I'd like to say there's a one size fits all, Misty, but I think it's like, it's kind of difficult when you're looking at human beings, right? But I like that you've named that pathway for people here. And then let's, again, kind of consultative role for us. Does that answer your question, Misty?
That's great. Thank you so much. So appreciate you.
Yep. Any other questions? These are great questions. Okay, I put these little business cards on the table again, QR code, takes you right to open call and chat, how to access it, the phone number, the app, all the different languages. I talked about same day appointments. If you hear a student say, I can't get an appointment for a month, have you tried a same day appointment? Let's give them a call, right? Help us to kind of mitigate what the rumor is out there that's happening. Here's the health portal where students go to on our website. And so all students have access to their own confidential HIPAA encrypted portal. We are just like any other doctor's office, right? We have our own governing and regulations around the keeping and protection of health protected information of students. And so this is where they would go to schedule an appointment as well, but they can also message any provider in the portal. So a student can message me and say, hey, I met you at a training. I want to see if I schedule an appointment. Totally appropriate. That's an appropriate place for us to have a conversation. So let students know that's where they go, to the health portal. Parents don't have access to the health portal. We get a lot of parents who say, can I get access to that? Yeah. No, you know, unless your student's 17, this is their medical care. And so something else to know is that you have to be, not have to be, but if you're 17 or under, we do need consent from your parent, guardian, family member in order for you to engage with us. We'll see you the first time. We're not going to say, no, we can't see you because you're 17. We're going to see you the first time, determine what you need, and then we're going to make sure we get those consents. This is what students can expect in their first appointment, at least in our telehealth or in-person appointments on our campus locations. This isn't necessarily, this does happen in open call and chat, but this is kind of maybe the face-to-face experience for students. And so we have a team of people called the Access Team. And these are the team of people that all students meet with when they come to counseling. It's not like students just come to us and they're like in treatment, right? Like there's actually a process to kind of triage them through and determine like, what do they need? What's the level of need? What's the severity of the need? And where do we need to point them to? And so they're always going to meet with an access clinician. This is a 20 to 30 minute appointment. What's going on? What do you need? We get curious, we ask questions. And then there's some pieces of paperwork, informed consent, consent for treatment. If they want to sign releases of information to involve the family members, great. We always want family members involved when risk happens, right? It's always hard when a student says, no, I don't want my parents involved when they're about to go to the hospital. And so like we're trying to get students to involve people in their lives who they care about. And then we're really hoping that they leave with some tips and strategies. You know, I've met with lots of students who just come in crying, had a breakup, devastated, and then like, I never saw them again, right? Maybe they got what they needed. They just need to get off their chest. And then others we may see for a little bit longer. And so we're not meant to be a long-term solution for students. That's really important to know. And so we do have a team of people that do work for students for maybe a semester. We have a robust training program of doctoral and master's level students. And so our master's level students, we'll see students for about a semester. And these are the students who maybe don't quite meet the criteria or need and specialty of an outside provider. Maybe they don't have insurance. Maybe they don't have transportation. And so that's where our kind of our clinical care team might keep students like that. But if a student has existing mental health conditions, medication, relationships with psychiatrists, and more specialty needs, then we're going to work with them on going into the community. Which this is a new database, which is a fantastic new database we just came out with about a year ago. It's called My Resource. And so it's basically a database of vetted providers here in the community, and students can just filter through what they're looking for. So like female, trans experience, United Healthcare Insurance, available on Tuesdays at 5 o'clock, and it just filters down what a student's looking for. It's pretty tremendous. Before we were referring students to psychology today, and like people in psychology today just don't give kind of enough information or it's not accurate. My Resource is super accurate. And so a lot of people want to know, do they accept my insurance? And so we'll sit with students sometimes and be like, let's go through My Resource, right? And so Dolores is our person who kind of manages any glitches with My Resource or things that maybe if a student kind of has some feedback about a provider, we address that because they've all been vetted. We either interview them, you know, done some form of research and background on them to ensure they're qualified to meet with students. And so My Resource, great database system, and it's right there on our website as well under the collaborating care tab. Let me go back. Oops. And so in terms of next steps, we decide with the student, like, what do you need next? All right, is it, nope, I feel great, I'm gonna move on. Do you want to schedule another appointment? Yeah, maybe just one more. No, I want to go into the community. I want a long-term therapist. No, I want to go get evaluated. Like, we just kind of point them where they need to go. And that's really just our role, is like getting them in the right direction. Any questions about the first appointment and what students can expect? So the United Healthcare is the student insurance for both health services and counseling services. If a student does have health insurance and they want to go to an outside specialty, so if they want eating disorder treatment, psychiatric services, medication, they start with us. We're kind of considered their primary care provider since we are the insurance holder for the university, and we do a referral to them to the community. And so we work with students on kind of the steps they need to take. But, you know, once the referral's in their hands, it's kind of up to them to make the call, right? And say, hey, I'm an ASU student. I got this referral from ASU Counseling. I'd like to sign up to seek services. And so that's the nice thing about student health insurance, is that they have options and they're pretty affordable. I want to say it's like $25 copays, which is tremendous. I talked about My Resource. Any questions about My Resource? You could even go to My Resource and look around for yourself. It's not like they're going to say, ding, 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 you're an ASU staff, you can't use this. Like, you could see what's out there too. Any online students have their own access to counseling called 360 Online. And so we do get online students. We don't turn them down. We just, through the course of kind of asking questions and getting to know them in the individual appointment, just saying, you know, oh, you're an online student, great. Let's kind of get you what you need today, but then let me point you to ASU Online where you can get the support you need. Same thing, if we have an online student who calls EMPACT, we're gonna see what they need, and then we're gonna point them in the right direction. You know, if they're in another state, then we just work with the authorities on their risk providers in other states if we suspect there's risk, if they are out of state or out of country. Devils for Devils, so they have their own Canvas course. This is a series of 6 videos, about 3 to 5 minutes each, all kind of one builds upon the other. And so there's actual role playing, there's student voice in here, there's an athlete, there's a Black sorority member, there's an Indian American president of a mental health club. And so the videos are really designed to like bring awareness and insight for students around mental health. It takes about an hour, but students get a little like certificate of completion afterwards. And so this is a great like onboarding training for any of your students and staff, just to take around like getting to know students, what's happening in the collegiate mental health space landscape. And then again, they get kind of excited about the certificate. So Devils for Devils course, and that's where you can go. Devils for Devils also has something called community circles. And so they're actually These are hybrid now. Before they were like Zoom during COVID. And so these are non-counseling, non-therapeutic, informal, peer-led ways for students to connect with each other based on affinity, ethnicity, culture, special interests. Right now we have a pre-health major, Robert, who's leading a community circle for other pre-health majors, right? Stressful major. And so he recognized like, gosh, you know, my peers are stressed out. We all kind of went through the same thing. Why don't I create a circle where I can bring my peers together and we can kind of work on these things? And so he's done a really fantastic job with his circle. And so any student can facilitate a community circle. It really has to be that they're comfortable with kind of speaking in groups of people, but just really passionate about a topic. And we provide the training, the facilitator training, to put them through feeling comfortable facilitating a community circle. And so how do you manage a group? How do you generate discussion? How do you manage disruption in a group? And then if risk happens, what does that look like? And then what do you do? And so we really set them up to be successful as facilitators. We rarely see risk happen, but it does, but at least they know where to go. And this is just a slide of health services. So similar to us, in-person telehealth, same day appointments, and they have their own kind of insurance things that they happen, but women's healthcare, physical healthcare, kind of general healthcare, and they also have a location on all 4 campuses as well. Health services and counseling, we often collaborate and integrate our health care together and things that happen. So if a student shows up at health services with some anxiety and some other medical conditions, we kind of they do the warm handoff to us in behavioral health. We have a behavioral health unit, and same with us. If we have a student who's in our office and kind of speaks to having some medical conditions, we're going to collaborate with them. And so we have a record system, electronic record system, where we're able to just message each other and say, hey, I have a student, or we have a shared student. How can we collaborate on their care? You all probably know these resources, but Dean of Students in the police department, the National Suicide Prevention Line is now 988. Trying to kind of similar concept to 911. We want people in mental health distress to kind of have a quick and easy number, not 273, like no one can remember that when they're distressed, right? So 988, quick and easy one. Here are a couple other resources. And then that's it. Any questions?
So the student health portal, is that both the health services and counseling
Yep.
services?
Yep.
If they're referred to a hospital, then is that somehow brought back in, or?
So we do have we have a team of people on our team called the intensive care team. And so if a student agrees to engage us in their care while they're in the hospital, then we certainly will work with the hospital staff on what their discharge plan is, and then transitioning them back to school, back to campus, and whatever safe way needs to happen. And so as long as the student consents to, yes, we may not always know about students in the hospital, right? It's not like, again, they're adults, so they could be in an inpatient facility and they may say, oh, you're an ASU student, do you want us to work with ASU counseling? Nope, right? And there's nothing really we can do, but we have students who are like, yeah, I really do need help. And so that's great. So students would opt to put their records from the hospital into the health portal. They would send those to us. They don't kind of naturally come to us. Other question?
So how is the devils unit-led program and collaborate with student organizations?
Yep, great question. So the way that they've currently collaborated is providing trainings. So the list of the library of trainings that we have, a lot of our Devils for Devils students are trained on those trainings. And so they can deliver the trainings to other student organizations. For the walk, they reached out to probably 50 different student organizations to engage them in the walk, but try to make it like relevant to their mission and vision of student organizations. I think Devils for Devils students are all open to working with other student organizations. And once they're kind of either connected to each other or kind of have that sort of common thing that they want to achieve together, then, they kind of synchronize and do their own thing. So we have other student organizations who invite us to table at their events, to come and be of support at certain events in different ways. And so I think there's kind of a lot of different ways that they can do that. The community circles is definitely one way where Devils for Devils students can be the trainers of the facilitation of the community circles. And so when they're out in the community talking to other students, they're like, hey, are you interested in facilitating a community circle? Great. We would love to see a community circle for, Indigenous students. Would you like to do that? Yeah, great. So, I mean, it's just kind of like how you and I would integrate or interact with each other. We're just kind of like synergizing to figure out kind of what we have in common. And I think Devils for Devils students do the same thing. Change the world. They were there and collaborating with other student organizations on that. There's sexual violence prevention has a huge group of student employees, workers who have a lot of different partnerships with other student organizations, and they weave devils for devils in that way. And so I think mainly like the training and education piece, but also figuring out like, you know, what's unique about your student organization as it relates to like the mental well-being of your students, and like how would you like to maybe see that enhanced, bolstered? Is there anything related to that that you want to see happen for your student organization? So I think it also depends on the student organization. Yep. Yes.
If I am interested in having you or someone from your office do
Yeah.
like a stress discussion or training with like my group of students, who do I reach out to?
That'll be me and Trevor.
Okay.
Yeah, and so we have the Sun Devil Fitness and Wellness people on each campus, also known as SDFC, the actual facility. They have a huge team of health educators. And so they also have health educators that can do different types of presentations. So it depends on the exact nature of the presentation. Like it'd either be us or them. They're pretty good at doing like activity-based stress stuff, you know, like, I don't know, they might like do yoga or stretching, where I don't know if I'd be the best stretcher. And so either one of us you'd reach out to, or I'd point you to the right person.
Okay.
Yep. And I didn't bring my cards. I keep forgetting to bring my cards, but Chris can connect you to my email.
Thank you.
Yeah, I go by Carrie, but my email is Caroline.
Okay.
Yeah, other questions?
Maybe contact you for the pyramid program.
Yep. For sure. For sure. I mean, again, I think, you know, my suggestion would be like, assign it to all your new staff and your new student workers. Like this is kind of their onboarding thing that they do. You know, all freshmen get sexual violence prevention and AOD, but they don't get mental health. And that's like kind of a big pain point for me, can you tell? And so that's a different previous conversation, maybe over happy hour. And so, you know, that's kind of the ways that like we look to you all to be like, how do we weave in mental health education, where maybe it's not always what woven in. I don't have any relationship with PAB. I never have. I would love to have a relationship with you all. You know, we would love to have had you at the walk. And so I think like I have some work to do in my relationships with PAB, because you're a pretty tremendous organization. And I think Devils for Devils could really benefit from your support and what they're trying to do. Yep. So nice to meet you all. Any other questions? Well, thank you, everyone. Hi, Zoom people.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, do Zoom folks have any questions? Sorry.
We didn't
No?
see any online.
Okay.
Thank you all so much for being here today. Thank you, Karen, very much for coming to present.
Yep.
Just a few notes, for those of you working with your organizations, re-registration does open Monday at 5 p.m. Please make sure that you have gone in and as advisors done the training. It launched on roughly March 14th for you as advisors. It's the same Canvas shell. So if you took it last year on Canvas, it's in the same space, but it's a new video, a new quiz. So please make sure you get that submitted. The other thing is those online, you've already gotten the link. Those in person, we do have a QR code for a feedback survey we're asking you to complete. It's a chance to share a bit about what topics you'd like to hear more about, maybe what offices or departments you'd like to hear from or hear from again, those sort of things. So take a few minutes to fill that out before you head out. But otherwise, please make sure you signed in, enjoy some food, take a mug with you, take some of the resources that Carrie brought. And otherwise, again, thank you for being here and have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
People were here on the call and
We were up to.
Thank you. Thank you.